Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today is another episode of Storytime Sunday, and we're going to work through chapter 6 of my book, Adventures of the Crown. First, we left off with the bandits trying to kidnap Fenrir for ransom, because they think he's some sort of noble, and he has told Lynette to go and tell someone that his dog needs to take a walk. So that was where we left off last. So we will just jump straight into the chapter and hopefully find out what happens. Lynette watched as the bandits dragged Fenrir off, after tying his hands behind his back. She had wanted to smack him upside the head and tell him to fight, but she realised quickly that he had been holding back any attempts at escape for her sake. They really had been surrounded, and even as they began to leave, the bandits had still kept their arrows honed in on Fenrir and her both. She tracked their footprints until she spotted the stronghold in which the bandits had made their camp. She knew right away that any attempt to storm such a place on her own would only result in her death. Forced with no other option, she decided to head towards the town of Gardo, in order to alert the guards at the very least. She rarely ever ventured into human-populated areas. Even her clan avoided them out of fear. However, the town itself had many of the Malruthia, and the humans seemed to not even notice her presence at all. They really couldn't tell one elf from the next. Part of her was insulted by this, but the other part of her was glad that she could go unnoticed and without trouble. The first guard she spoke to about the bandits had waved her off, telling her that there was nothing he could do about them, and that unless they threatened the town itself, he would not leave the town to help her free some random stranger. The second guard she spoke to offered her apologies, but she too could not help her unless the bandits proved to be a danger to the town. She did advise asking around the taverns to see if there were any for-hire mercenaries who might help if she had enough coin. Lynette cursed the humans of this town under her breath. She had tried to explain that the man who had been taken was likely a nobleman, but the guards had brushed her aside as if she had been lying. For no lord would involve himself with one of her kind. After all, she certainly did not look like a servant to nobility. If only my clan was closer, Lynette grunted. Then I wouldn't have to rely on those foolish humans for aid. She looked down at the sheer sword that Fenrir had given her. A worried look washed over her face, and she wondered how the idiot was doing. "Trust me," he had said. "I'll trust you to be dead by the time I find someone to help you, maybe," she grumbled, as she had no coin to hire anyone, and the guards were all but useless. All she could do was make her way to the inn Fenrir had mentioned. It was a fairly big building, and it was obvious the owner had a lot of coin to spend on keeping it presentable. As she made her way inside, she noticed the entrance was more akin to a tavern. It was especially quiet due to the time of day, but she was glad for that. "May I help you, miss?" the man at the bar said, glancing over at her as he dried a tankard. He was an older man, perhaps in his 60s. He had grey hair that had been brushed back over his head, and a tiny beard. He looked like he had seen better days, with several old wounds, and an eye patch covering one of his eyes. As he moved from one place to another, he had a limp in his step. "I'm looking for the innkeeper," she said, her tone a little unsure. "That be me, miss," the man said, placing the tankard away. "What can I do you for?" Lynette gave herself a moment before she said, "I was told to tell you that Fenrir's pet dog needs a walk." Frowning deeply, Lynette then began to speak again, but before she could say much more than "I still don't," the innkeeper interrupted her. Let me see your sword, miss," he said, pointing at the sheathed blade that Fenrir had given her. But as Lynette handed it to him, the innkeeper then spoke again. "I see. Gotten himself into trouble again, has he?" "Yes. How did you—" "That man is always in trouble, you see." The innkeeper chuckled a little. "What you said had nothing to do with the dog. But it's a code word, you see, for his guard dog. Or the night captain, if you prefer." As he said this, he handed the sheathed blade back to Lynette and moved around the bar. "The night captain? Oh. So that's why he... Well, no wonder, Lynette said, realising now why Fenrir had told her to do this. Of course a knight would go get another knight to help him. Instead of realised he wasn't just being stupid. The innkeeper laughed for a little more at her, then said as he motioned for her to follow. Leading her out back, he reached a bird cage. He takes some getting used to, that's for certain. So what trouble is he in now? The man asked. Got taken by bandits, Lynette said, watching the innkeeper writing a message, then placing it in a small compartment that was tied to one of the bird's legs. Vaughan is not going to be happy about that, the man laughed. His laughter made Lynette feel as though no one took any of this seriously. Does he really get into this much trouble all the time? Oh yes, all the time, the man replied, releasing the bird in the air. That be why I have all these messages pre-written. I just need to add the type of danger and location. It saves me a lot of work, you see. Lynette nodded slightly. I am somehow not surprised at all. The innkeeper smiled at her once, then said, maybe Hayden Roycraft. Though me regulars call me Roy. Lynette, she replied with a polite nod. So, Roy, how long until help arrives? I'm not sure how long the bandits will wait for ransom gold. And if he gets into as much trouble as he does, I suspect he won't last long before they get annoyed with him. You've not got much faith in him, have you? Roy said, with a grin as he limped back into the inn. Don't you worry none. Boy will be fine. He may not look it. But he is a good fighter if need be. You sound as if you know this from experience, Lynette said, following Roy closely. She was glad that at least one person in the entire town was actually taking her seriously and treating her as an equal, or at the very least politely. That because I do have experience. He saved my life more than I can count, you know. Back in the day, Roy said, patting his wounded leg. So why does he have to fall so much? I've never met a guard or knight that was not so deathly serious all the time. Roy seemed to hesitate with his answer before he settled with, he wasn't always as you see him. I wonder at his change too, but it's none of my business. You're his friend, aren't you? Lynette asked with a frown. Roy regarded her with a quiet stare before he spoke again. He was my leader, nothing more. Though 'tis true, I look up to him and respect him a deal more than I should. Frowning further, Lynette folded her arms. I don't get your relationship with him at all. You obviously care about him enough, but not enough to think of him as a friend. You humans are so strange to me. The man gave a short laugh. Well, it's not like I can go telling everyone that I'd be his friend. You don't understand for a good reason, I reckon. Likely the same reason you're able to call him the things you do. And not get in trouble for such. What? Never mind, miss. It's not my place to explain it to you. Stick around and you'll find out for yourself, Roy said, returning to his work cleaning tankards. In the meantime, why don't you relax a bit? No sense in worrying about the man until Vaughan gets here with some of the knights. Shouldn't we at least try to help? Lynette said, glancing to the door. She didn't want to just wait around for help to arrive when she could be doing something, anything to help. Not unless you want to get him killed. Trust him. You will see for yourself. It will be fine. And that is the end of the chapter. I hope you enjoyed the chapter. I know they seem a little short for, reading, but they're not that short. It's like I've written chapters a lot shorter than this. It was fun to write. So some stories require longer chapters. Some require shorter chapters. Depends on the story you want to tell. I'm actually used to writing really longer chapters. Funnily enough, even though I'm calling this a short chapter, it's actually too long for like the web apps that I usually write for. So I've had to shorten the chapters even more than this. It's kind of funny. But anyway, hopefully you like this one. And we'll see you for the next Storytime Saturday. Until then, if you like the video, dislike it if you dislike it, subscribe if you want more, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, everybody.